We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
Hey, before we start the show, I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, share the video with a friend. This is Base Coverage, and we talk European League of Football.
Here we go. Welcome to Base Coverage. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, like this video, share with a friend. This part of Base Coverage, we went back, had to dive into like the ELF insiders and get it with my guy Matt Breslin, as we got some more topics we want to discuss today. But before we do that, let's bring in my guy Matt now and bring him to the show. So Matt, my ELF insider co-part, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, man. Long days, lots of receiver rankings out, bunch of tape watched. Excited for the season. It's like what, 3 weeks away now?
We're about like we're like 20, probably under 25 days now, and that's gonna be quick. You know, if you follow training camp like timelines, they'll probably do some scrimmages next week. I know the Surge are doing something that's pretty creative, and they're doing a blue-white game, playing on like a little college thing that they do in the States. And then the following week is game week, probably, right?
Yeah, I think so. I've heard some really interesting stuff that might be happening in Germany. I can't say which team or what's happening, but I'll have to wait and see because I don't want to get like in trouble for saying it, but I've heard some really exciting stuff might be coming to Germany within the next few weeks too. So watch out for that. When you see it, you'll know, kind of thing.
Matt with some half breaking news here.
That's why we're insiders, bro. That's why we're insiders.
As I mentioned before, we are missing Alex today. He just couldn't make it, but we'll get him next time around. But this kind of side of Base Coverage, we're the ELF insiders. We're going to be talking ball. Matt does the same thing and posts it to his channel as well, and we'll clip the link below. And really, kind of two big topics we want to talk about today. One of the big topics that we wanted to dive into is training camp storylines. Right, as we just mentioned, we're in the thick of training camp. We got some things that are brewing, some things that I personally want to talk about for some teams that maybe have not gotten much coverage, and kind of see what Matt thought and what you guys think as well. Per usual, you know, drop a comment, let us know what you think. But Matt, some storylines that we wanted to chat with you about today. One of the first ones that I wanted to kind of dive into and get your thoughts is about a receiver that really is getting no love, no coverage, none to really talk about, and that is for the Cologne Centurions, Conor Weddington. Obviously played in the NFL, played for the Houston Texans, is literally at this point, you know, probably one of the best kept secrets in Germany. What are your thoughts on Conor Weddington being the best receiver possibly in the West?
So yeah, I've like watched some of his Stanford tape, and of course he went to the Seahawks, he went to the Texans, went to all these different places in preseason where even though you don't play, I think a lot of people are like, oh, you know, he only played in preseason. And that's more experience than 99% of players. So he's big, he's rangy. I don't think he found the end zone a bunch of times when he came into college and through his Stanford career. I think that's going to change. Like, he's so physically dominant. I think that in the red zone, he's going to be huge. You know, he's going to be the only problem I see with him coming in is he's going to have all the attention because Cologne lost a bunch of players last season. They lost Lenhart, that slot guy. He was he's a feisty fucker. He's a good receiver, and they lost him. And so Connor's going to be the guy. They got Isaiah Weed at quarterback, who I don't think has the most elite arm of this QB class. So we'll see how he's obviously taking a massive step up. It's a GFL 2 guy. How is he going to look getting him the ball? Obviously, Cologne last season had a rolling door of quarterbacks like for a minute, and didn't necessarily use their offenses as well as they could have. So they fell behind. You know, the Hamburg Sea Devils and Rhein Fire. And that division is just
brutal.
You know, it's brutal. Yeah. So they're going to be trying to battle out with Hamburg. I think it's going to be a lot closer. They're going to have to try and pick up a key win in Madrid. But I think that Conor Weddington is, like you said, the best kept secret. People aren't talking about him. Like, he's not been on any top fives. He's not. The league isn't really talking about him that much, and like their coverage of it. He was a former NFL guy, and he's got very little attention. So for me, I think that Weddington is going to come in. He's going to put up a few big games, and then people are going to start noticing him.
Yeah, and he definitely has had like the experience and obviously, the talent. Played at one of the top levels in the States. Played at a great school. Played in the league, for a little bit. Now he's coming over to Europe, and obviously there's always that transition of how how they're gonna do first time, all that stuff. But when you look at the West and receivers, I think that's a pretty bold statement when you got like a Markel Castle, even just looking at the A's, Markel Castle,
Yeah.
you got Willie Patterson, you got Austin Mitchell, slot fast guy, Anthony Mahungu, not an American.
But
You got
plays like an American.
yeah, basically he played in the league. He played in the league too. And I know there's names that are out there, Theo Landstrom, Harlan Kofi, like the West is loaded at receivers, but the guy that could be the best might be the guy that no one is talking about in Conor Weddington.
Yeah. I think that if you put him in like last, because we've had a bunch of guys move, like Markel moved and Jarvis moved, so they're getting a lot of like the people's eyes because people know who they are. Connor's come in. If he came in last season when there was a little bit less like movement, I think he would have got a lot more attention. But I think given this offseason has been insane, he's gone a little bit under the radar, I think, in terms of him signing for the Clones Centurions.
Most definitely. We're excited to see him week 1 versus the Ryan Fire and see how that pans out.
Yeah. It's going to be a good game.
Definitely is. What do you got? What's some storylines you're looking into for this training camp?
I think that the Roquel Panthers have just got the best backfield in the league, and I think they're going to absolutely walk all over teams with that running game. We got obviously David Brzozowski, who is the kind of breakout player last season, right? Like he wasn't on many people's boards as a guy who's going to lead the league in rushing. But 580 yards, 3 touchdowns, so good, like real good for a running back. Came in last season, got 1,116 and 12 touchdowns. Like he's averaging 5.44 yards per carry is the clip he was going at. 3 fumbles, lost only one of them. So, that sound is going to clean up. But then you've got a deal also with the former Frankfurt Galaxy running back, Gentry Adams, American in his first year, E-player in his second, but he came in to Potsdam. You got 700. Yeah, 797 yards and 12 touchdowns for Potsdam last season. Was one of the best running backs there. Last season, like he was there with 2022 as well, but he only played 2 games. Those 2 running backs, they could start at probably every team, maybe apart from maybe Munich with Tomiwa and maybe Fire with Glenn. Those 2 guys are going to tear teams apart. You got Stephen Duncan, who's obviously a huge guy at quarterback. Like it's going to be hard to take him down. Matt Cole could be used an extension of the run game. Yeah. So I think they could be. I think they could have like a 2,000 yard like 2 1,000 yard rushes on that team at the same time, which would be insane.
And that's what they want to do. The Broncos, the Panthers want to run the ball. They want to be balanced. Like obviously, you look at them last year, and them signing Tony Tate, which was an awesome signing, and Matt Vitale, which was an awesome signing, and not knowing who they were going to be. And you go on to see the type of season they had. They want to run the ball. They made a star out of David Brzozowski, and now you're bringing in Janindi Adams too. So it's going to be a lot of ground and pound in Poland. And I kind of like that we're seeing a lot of teams, and we'll dive into the run backs later, but a lot of teams go that route because for so long the game's been about speed, fast-paced, up-tempo, spread the ball, pass the ball. And you slowly starting to see teams get back to, running the ball, going against the grain, especially if they got to see a light box. So we'll see what happens in that capacity on that front. But definitely, the Panthers could probably have, 2,500 rush season between the 2, which would be crazy. Really think about it like that. It'd be nuts. Which would be
on that division, like who's going to stop them? Like defensively in that conference, Vienna, and that's about it really that could hold them.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. If I think when you look at that division, I think Berlin probably is most stout defensively. I like not taking anything away from any of the other teams. I think when you look at Vienna's defense, they're with the way they run their screen, they could possibly be real light in the box, but obviously they got guys that could make those plays. Prague, people sleep on Prague. Prague actually had a decent defense. beginning of last year. So we'll be interested to see what happens there. And then we don't know what we're getting from the Anthroners, but we know that they're trying to stop the run with signing 2 Americans at the defensive line. So
yeah.
so we'll see. I think Berlin's built now, but to stop that type of scheme, but we'll see. The next storyline that I wanted to dive into is, one of the OG teams in Europe, not just the ELF, in Europe, still looking for, their replacement for a legend at quarterback, right? And that is the Raiders of Tyrol. Did they finally find their Sean Shelton replacement? Obviously, they, it's been documented, everything that happened last year for the Raiders in that capacity, and the turnover. And no one said replacing Sean Shelton was going to be easy, but did they finally find their guy? Is DAngelo F possibly the best quarterback they've had since replacing Sean Shelton?
I'm going to go and say no.
Ooh.
Because, I'm a little bit hot with this one. So I think I was saying to Nick Alfieri, obviously a friend of everyone who, he's great, just halfway through his podcast at the moment. But I was saying to him, I don't know how teams haven't all got D1 quarterbacks. And F is a D3 guy. He tore up D3. But when it comes to the NFL draft, how many is 150 schools, D1 schools in America?
Yeah, now it's probably like
2-3
around that.
Yeah, 2-3 quarterbacks each roster, or maybe one senior, for example. 10, 12 of them get drafted. That's 100 quarterbacks you could look into. Go back 5 years of draft classes. You've got 500 potential quarterbacks. So, and then obviously I did a breakdown on Tabor, a North Carolina guy, didn't play in college, looks really good in Spain.
Yeah.
So there are players at a D1 level who are coming over to Europe and not playing in the big league of the ELF. So I'm not sure that he's as good as Strong. He might prove me wrong. We've seen like last year, Jared Evans had no support. Ex-NFL practice squad guy, didn't have much support in the Andronas, didn't do as well as we hoped that he would.
Yeah.
And then players like Zach Edwards, who I think he's a D2 guy, is being one of the league's best for the last few seasons. So it's not like a do or die rule. You have to be a D1 quarterback. But I think that when you see people like Levi Lewis coming in, you're like, that I've heard as well from Barcelona Insight that he's looking unreal. So, Jadrian as well, the former D1 guy. So I think that it adds a little bit more excitement if you can say that D1 pedigree is attached to him.
Yeah, and I would say this, one thing that the Raiders had going last year was they had Christian Strong and you had Jarvis. Those guys played with each other for over their career so far in Europe. So it's not like they had to build chemistry. That chemistry was already there. It was really just understanding whatever the playbook was and understanding, the chemistry between the other receivers, and they're going to have to do the same too. But, first of all, he played at Mount Union in Division III. So those who don't know, Mount Union as a D3 school is like the Alabama of Division III school. They actually should be playing up. They're usually in the championship game like every year against, I think it's Whitewater or something. But, he's played at the highest level at the Division III division. And some could say that school is better than a lot of D2 schools. Obviously not D1, but it's a complete. This is the thing that's going to be tricky, is because we don't know. It's a complete makeover from the organization, from the coaches and stuff like that. So we don't know what that team's going to look like. In the past, they've been very, methodical and very I'm not going to say scripted, but know when they wanted to take their shot, where they wanted the ball to be placed. Really death by 1,000 cuts type of offense, and then they took their big shot. So it's going to be interesting to see how they pan week 1 when they play, Milan, which I think is going to be a matchup-wise could be a tricky game, a tricky game.
Because they lost a lot of offensive linemen too. Like their offensive line this year is not as good as it was last year. You had Toby Letman and Steven Nielsen, who are elite level tackles. They're both gone now. He's going to have less time. He's not going to have Sandro. Sandro obviously played a little bit, didn't really play a whole lot. But they're going to have Bonatti in as a feature back, who is excellent.
Yeah.
They've lost a lot of guys, so I'm not so sure. Jarvis is phenomenal as well, and they've brought in, I'm blanking on his name, the receiver they brought in instead of Jarvis, but it's going to be hard to fill his shoes too. Like Jarvis is a top 5, top 7 receiver in the league. So
Absolutely.
can he produce the same level as Strong? Not so sure. Of course, that Strong and Jarvis produced last season where they were like 7-1, 7-2 when they both departed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like. How
Yeah.
realistically get 2 better than that, and they still lost. Like they still left them. So
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. Obviously, I hope him the best. I hope that he does tear up the league because it's good for everyone if he does. I'm just not so sure if he's going to have the same ceiling as Chris Strong does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And I think one thing that's when the Raiders are good, and the Raider-Viking rivalry is good, football in Europe and especially Austria is good. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. What other storylines do you got heading into camp?
I think from what I'm hearing that level of European receivers, I think that we are going to have our first debuting 1,000-yard receiver who is European. I think that's what we're going to have. Antu Mahonwu is, of course, going to be the guy who most people would think of in terms of people who maybe not going under the radar because they're elite Europeans, but guys who might be able to tail into that 1,000. You've got Jordan Boer in Vienna, one of the elite. You've got Yannick Meyer, Louis Geyer has been climbing every season. Flores Calderon wasn't that far off, like as a rookie.
Yeah.
Tommy Wilson's going to be incredible. So there's a bunch of European guys that come in. Obviously, me and you have talked about the receivers, and this is made in receiver class, and The Europeans are looking good too, and I think we've never had a 1,000-yard receiver that's been European. We had Jordan in the first year, a bunch of people in the second year, only Markel last season, and I think we're going to get a couple more. Yeah, so Antoine was real close. Robin Vilcek was incredibly close. Louis Geyer as well. So there's guys that are near. If Anthony catches 126-yard ball, he gets 1,000 yards. So it's not out of the ordinary to say that he's going to get Theodor Landstrom's another one. Harlan Quofi, I think, is the most complete receiver in arguably the league. Like, he's an incredible block. If you've never seen Harlan Quofi block, he has a whole tape. He has a whole tape dedicated to blocking. So he's a player that's a sleeper for it.
Harlan Quofi is the Steve Smith of the ELF. And those who don't know who Steve Smith is, wide receiver, he's played for the Carolina Panthers, Google him. Harlan Quofi is the Steve Smith of the ELF.
He's just bigger. Like he's a big dude. Like he's huge. So for him, and obviously Anti's now left that team. And that's more targets I think are going to go towards Harlan because he might be playing as the X. You've got Kelvin McKnight is more of a slot guy. So could he be Jadrian Scarney outside? I think he can be.
We're for sure going to find out. We're for sure going to find out. But those are some storylines that we wanted to dive into heading into training camp, or while we're in training camp, and as we're a little bit under or a little bit more than 3 weeks away from the first game. But we're in May, so the first game is this month. So it's definitely something to be excited about.
Nobody, hard work